I have a confession to make. Throughout high school, I never used to study, bro. Actually, let me not say I never used to study. There are subjects that I never used to study. And that's not because I was lazy or I didn't want to study, because I was actually a good student. But the thing is, there are other subjects that I knew that I had problems with. For example, math. I was too busy doing math to care about subjects that I didn't really care about and that I was kind of okay with, right? So the thing is, I wouldn't study these subjects. But what surprised me the most is I always used to get higher grades than the people who claimed to be studying these subjects throughout the whole term. Throughout the whole term, I'd be chilling and I'd be doing maths because I was having trouble with math, right? So every night before the day of the examination for the subjects that I didn't study, I would do this one thing and it would actually work greater than the people who studied throughout the whole term. So my whole point is this one method could save you the whole term. If you know you don't study, or if you know you have other subjects that are challenging to you, you can save your whole term doing those subjects, and the day before the examination, you can do this one method. It's kind of like an easy way out, but not really an easy way out. And that's when I came up with the idea or the realization that working smarter is actually better than working harder. Because imagine studying throughout the whole term, and then someone who studies the day before the examination still passes more than you. I think for me that would be more frustrating, bro. So I had to research and come up with this method and curate this whole method for myself because I knew I didn't want to study this subject throughout the whole term and I had other things to do. So that's exactly the cheat codes that I'm giving you today. How I studied the night before every examination and still got more points than other people who studied throughout the whole term. I still got A pluses, bro. Like for example in Geo, bro, I was okay in Geo and I knew that, so I didn't study Geo throughout the whole term. And the night before every Geo examination, I did this method and I still got 90s, like literally 90s. I don't know what you used over there, how to grade yourselves, but we use levels. So the highest is level 7, and I always used to get level 7. Bro, that's literally an A plus, like 90s, A plus. And the reason why I'm holding the mic is because I don't want to scream because there's someone sleeping in the other room. So can't make too much noise today, and you can tell me if you like me holding the mic more or me just screaming and shouting. So the method goes, there are 4 steps, and they're literally like easy steps that you can just do one after the other, but you need every step, so you have to stick to the end of the steps. There are only 4. Step 1, you want to select the pages you want to read first. Out of the whole book, which pages do you want to read? You have to be intentional. Now what this is doing is setting up the desire, setting up intention, and making you almost aggressive towards what you want. For example, if you hold a book and say, you know what, I want to read this whole book, you may feel lazy, bro, if you say I want to read this whole book. But if you pick out like maybe a few pages, like 5 pages, and you say, you know what, I'm going to read these pages before the end of the day, that's setting up intention for you to be more aggressive towards what you want. And that's exactly what we're doing for your mind. It's setting up that intention, because with everything that you do, bro, you have to be intentional so you can be aggressive and go after what you want. That's exactly what you're doing. You have to select the pages that contain the information that you want to study, right? Know what you want to study first and select the pages. Step 1. Then step 2, divide your pages. Let's say you have 9 pages, divide them into 3s. Now this is also attacking your mind in that you've selected 9 pages, but then you divide them into 3s. So now you have 3 sets of 3, and in your mind you're like, you know what, I have to reach 9 pages. When I get home I have to study the whole night for 9 pages. No, in your mind now it's like, you know what, I have to study 3 sections, and 3 sounds like a smaller number, so you won't hesitate to do it more. And knowing myself in subjects that I didn't like to study, it helped me a lot. I'd be like, you know what, I need to read 3 sections, which is much easier for my brain. And remember that you always want to make things easier for your brain. It may seem like something minuscule, but it will definitely help your brain. That's why people say divide your tasks or attack everything one by one, or live day at a time, because anyone can live one day at a time. But when you think about the future, that's when it gets kind of messed up, right? So that's exactly what we're doing when it comes to this task. We're dividing them to make it like one thing at a time. 3, smaller number. Then you read. After dividing, you read your sections. And when you're reading, you want to use a highlighter. And what that does is, it's going to come in handy on the next step. So when you're reading, remember that you want to divide your sections into sections, in this case 3 sections, and you want to use a highlighter when you're reading, and I'll tell you for why. Step 3, take a 15-minute nap after reading each section. Now whenever you finish a section, when you finish section 1, take a 15-minute nap, like literally sleep, bro. And you may be asking, why sleep? What does that have to do with me passing my examination and getting the marks that I want to get? It's because there's a whole science behind it. Whenever you sleep, whatever that you learned is deeper ingrained into your mind, so it's harder to forget, it's easier to remember, should I say. So what I mean by that is, whenever you read or learn something new to you, there are things called neural pathways and connections. So these things, they are formed in your brain. It's like your brain being reborn. But then you have to remember, you are reading one night before the examination, so these new neural pathways and connections that are being made in your mind, they're still weak. So it's easier for you to forget. You may read something and then forget it as soon as you read it, right? So that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. And that's exactly the remedy that we're using sleep for. The connections that were made in your brain, they are now stronger. They are not easy to break. Whenever you try to remember, they don't break. They are now stronger and firmer. So therefore, whenever you try to remember, the connections are smooth and you can just remember easier. But if you read the whole 3 sections at once, the connections will be weak, you'll struggle to remember things, and when you need it the most in the examination, you'll find out you read it the night before, but you can't remember anything. And that's exactly why we want you to sleep. You know, when people say, I was doing an all-night study, those things don't work. And most of the times you find out in the examination that you'll fail because you didn't get time to sleep and make those connections stronger, so therefore you can't remember anything. Now step 4, when you wake up, scan all over the section you just read and try to remember. Now, remember when I said use a highlighter? That's exactly what we are preparing for. Step 4, when you wake up, you scan over the section you just read and try to remember. Now when you're scanning, I mean literally like just go like not point by point, just graze over whatever you just read and try to look for the highlighted words. Anything that was important to you, look for the highlighted words and go over them. And when you're doing this, you have to fill in or fill out the blanks. For example, you may be reading a sentence that goes like, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell because, then you finish the sentence and try to remember, because it provides energy for the cell. Now it's called active recalling, and active recalling is the best way that you can learn because it's like answering the questions in the paper that's going to come in the examination, right? In the examination, they'll ask you a similar question. They'll ask, what does the mitochondria do, or why is it called the powerhouse of the cell? And now you just did the same thing in the morning. You were reading a sentence and then you answer the question by filling in the blanks. So that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to graze over whatever you just read, look for the highlighted words, and try to fill out the blanks in your mind. This method applies to everything that is not math, because math you actually have to put in the work. This applies to only subjects that you can read and study, and that have a lot of work that you need to cover. So you can do this. And you actually need to pick up the book once or twice during the term, because bro, you can't just go the night before and try to read 50 pages. It's like when you have like a topic that you didn't do or something, not like the whole book. No, it doesn't work like that. Now, as life advice that could actually save your life someday, I just want to say that there's no such thing as last minute studying won't help you. Last minute studying has saved me more times than I can count, bro. Before every examination, I do last minute studying, and surprisingly, it helps me a lot. Because for example, let's say there's a 5-step process that you need to fill out or complete, and you forget one step. That last minute studying, bro, can save you like 5 marks in an examination. So, carry your books before every examination, and also everyone else is talking, making noise, goofing off before the examination. You lock in because you know where you're coming from. You didn't study and you're using the method that I told you to use. So make sure your mind is always refreshed, and you find out, bro, when you go into the examination, you do even much better than the people who spend the whole time studying. And that's exactly what I used to do. Now this is what I would say to you literally before the exam started if I was there with you. First things first, I would say, bro, relax. Like, probably you'd be looking stressed and you'd be like second guessing this method, and I'd be like, bro, relax, you got this, bro. Like, just trust the method, bro. If you did all the steps, you'll be fine. Then finally, I would say you have to accept all the consequences that come with all your decisions. Now what that means is you have to accept that you didn't study, bro, and you have to accept that you're going to get whatever mark that you get because of the choices that you made. If you chose not to study throughout the whole term, then you have to accept, like, okay, you know what, I chose not to study throughout the whole term, but I accept whatever consequences I face. If it's hard, it's going to be hard. I accept it. And you also have to accept whatever results that you're going to come out with. And the reason why you're doing that is so that you don't fall into the trap of regret. Because the more you regret, the more you fall into depression. And the more you fall into depression, the more you can't study for the future examinations. So before every examination, whether you did study or you applied this method, you have to accept all the consequences that come with everything. This is only for you not to regret and for you to be almost natural, not to be worried, not to be too stressed, and to just accept your fate, bro. And I'm not saying that because you're going to fail. I hope you can apply this before your examination. For those people, not those people, it sounds kind of discriminatory. I know some people will judge this method or the video and say I'm encouraging people not to study, but that's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. I know people, students, we don't have time, bro. We don't have time to study every subject because of the homework that we're given, because of the tasks, the assignments, the projects, the research, everything that we're given. So when you need this method, just know that it exists, right? I'm not saying don't study. In the most optimum conditions, you have to study throughout the whole term, but I know that sometimes it can be impossible, or you may have challenging subjects that you want to study more than the other subjects, and at the end of the day, you don't have time to study some subjects, and that's exactly when you can apply this method. Otherwise, bro, study, but when you're in desperate need, just come back to the video, watch this method, and you can also apply this method throughout the whole term, because if it can work the day before an examination, why can't it work during the whole term on a normal day? You know what I mean? So with that being said, I hope you learned something, and I hope you can apply this method whenever you're in desperate need, in dire need, in a situation that you can't escape and you're literally about to cry because you didn't study. And yeah, welcome to DC, the Dreamer's Call. Give your heart and the world is yours to conquer. Take care.